Hello YouTube, it's Jason again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are at, and thanks for tuning in. Today I've got so much content to cover and I'm coming to you on YouTube today from my M200 camera. So I'm not recording this from my M50, but it's from my M200 camera and it looks lovely. The M200's got tons of features. It's the younger brother to the M50. It is released slightly later than the M50 and it was created with the intent to do live streaming. Two things that the M50 can't do, that the M200 can do, is that it has got a lovely audio meter when you're recording. So I'm recording using the camera's microphone and you can see the audio meter left and right running, and that is something that the M50 can't do unless you monitor it without the video stream on the screen. Now, second thing that the M50 cannot do that the M200 can do is clean HDMI. Now, Canon, come on, you can do better than that. Give the M50 a firmware upgrade so you can get clean HDMI on the M50. Pretty please? Now, M50, M200 aside, today I'm going to talk about two things. Number one is a focal length experiment that I did a couple of days back. And number two is to go through the new gear that I bought over the week. Now, firstly, the focal length experiment. I was asking myself, what focal length do I need to use based on the distance of the subject? If the subject is 10 feet away, what focal length should I set? If the subject is 100 feet away, what focal length should I be using? So that is a question a new photographer would always ask, and that would tie into what kind of lens do you want to buy. So I did a simple experiment based on the lenses that I already have. I've got the kit lens, right, 15 to 45. I've got a Sigma 16, I have the EF M200 and the EFS 55 to 258mm. So if the subject is a closed up big group of people, or an individual portrait, or shooting a wedding crowd, or using zoom lens for telephoto shots, right? Which lens do I put on the M50? Okay, so what I did is, my method was I grabbed a Presto Bunny, and a Presto Bunny is about my height, 6 feet tall, and I marked the distance where the bunny would fill up the entire picture from top to bottom based on multiple focal lengths. I'll give you an example. I tested with the kit lens at 15mm and the bunny had to stand 7.5 feet away in order for me to capture from top to bottom. So the results were interestingly very linear, right? The further away the subject is, it's just double the focal length in terms of millimeters. So an example would be when I was using the Sigma 16, when the subject is standing 8 feet away, he would fill up the entire height from the bottom to the top of the screen. Now, if he was 12 feet away, when I use 24mm, he would fill the bottom to the top. So, and similarly, if I were to use my 100mm focal length, the subject at 50 feet would fill up from the bottom to the top of the screen. So that gives you an interesting range. You would see the graph on your screen, the graph that I plotted. So basically, if you could estimate the distance of your subject in terms of feet, you would be able to determine what kind of focal length to use on your lens. Now I know what lens to use in what situation. Now, secondly, moving on to the gear of the week. This week I went very aggressive in getting some gear. The first piece of gear that I got is this lovely lens. This is the Canon zoom lens. It is the EF 24 to 70mm f2.8L Mark II USM lens. This is a great all-rounded variable zoom lens that covers most of photography types. The aperture of 2.8 maintains throughout the entire focal length, all the way from 24 to 70mm, allowing for a relatively low ISO and fast shutter speed to be used. This is connected via my Viltrox adapter. It's not a speed booster, it's just an adapter, there's no lens inside, right? This lens is very heavy. and it is also relatively large. So this is the 24-270, and this is the kit lens. Yeah, so you can see, you can compare the size, right? The EF 24-70 is huge, and here it is comparing with the 55 to 250 millimeter EFS lens. So it is really huge. It's really large. However, the picture quality is worth it, as I can get consistent sharpness across the entire picture. Okay, no more gear shopping unless it's a bigger bag to keep all my stuff. The next thing I got was new straps for photo shoots. The strap that came with the M50 and the M200 is really tiny. And if you hang a really heavy camera or a really heavy lens together with your M50, M200 on that tiny strap, it's going to be really painful for your neck or your shoulder. And also, those kind of straps look really touristy. You look like a tourist. So, I've always wanted to get two straps to strap on two different cameras with different focal lengths. So it's easy for quick shots, right? I can just sling on my M50 with the 24 to 70 millimeter lens, and my M200 with the Sigma 16 lens, which is what I'm running right now to shoot this video. The Canon EF 24 to 70 is more for generic shots, and the Sigma 16 for close-up group shots. The EFS 55 to 250 would be if I needed the telephoto range up to 250 millimeters. Now, the third thing that I bought this week is a variable ND filter. This is a JJC branded variable ND filter, 2 to 400 for the Sigma 16mm lens. It is basically a manual variable filter that allows for shooting in bright outdoor settings. Think of it as similar to a transition lens, where it darkens in the sunlight. However, this darkening is done manually, it's adjusted manually, and it doesn't darken by itself. So this ND filter hooks up to the Sigma 16 lens. I'm going to do a quick test, and there's a little notch here which tells you what kind of intensity is the filter running. And now this is at its minimum setting, right? So I'm just going to put it over the lens, and then you'll see the slight difference, right? So now the colors have darkened a little bit. Of course, my ISO is running on auto, so the camera would auto adjust the exposure. But you can immediately see the difference and the yellowing of my face once I put on the filter, and of course once I take it out. Now, when I put on the filter, I could also adjust the intensity. I can darken. It's very hard to darken, yes. It's darkening, and I'm all the way black. This is at its maximum, and I'm slowly opening, and there you go. Of course, without the filter, it's totally bright. Yeah. So why would you use such a filter? When I was shooting in the sunlight, the pictures turned out too washed out, too white. Now that is when this filter comes in. Besides setting up the exposure on the camera, I've got another setting, which is an external variable ND filter. Right. So this costs about 180 ringgit, and I got it off KLDSLR. That's all from me today. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing. I'm going to be putting out videos every Sunday. I commit to do that, whether or not I got new gear or whether or not I have got more photo shoots. So take care, stay safe, and see you again. Bye bye.